we'll save that. But let's go to the Mount Flushmore, Minnesota sports now.
Okay. So my Mount Flushmore, if you guys have seen my Twitter profile, I actually literally have a graphic that I've created of my Mount Flushmore. And it's got the first person on there is Norm Green. And as I stated earlier, it's not, I don't believe he is responsible for the conditions of why. I mean, he's responsible for moving a team. He is, and he'll always be remembered that way. I mean, he was dealing with a certain situation, but he's one of the most hated villains in Minnesota sports. I don't know how he could not be on a Mount Flushmore. Mm-hmm. My Timberwolves selection is Glenn Taylor, and here's the thing. You struggle with Glenn Taylor because without Glenn Taylor, the Timberwolves would be in Louisiana. They'd be in New Orleans. He swooped in and bought the team. So he did do good stuff.
Something good.
Right, and he saved the team from leaving, okay? But since then, he's done so many things just shooting us in the foot, looking into Andrew Wiggins' eyes and giving him a max contract and the Joe Smith thing and just so many. So I mean, you got to have him on your list. I have Calvin Griffith on my list for the Twins just because the legendary stories of him being cheap and he would trade players because he didn't want to pay them. He wasn't interested in winning. He was interested in balancing his checkbook. And that philosophy, in my opinion, stays with the Twins today. And there's some documented stuff of him being, saying some racist things about Rod Carew. So if you're talking bad folks, he's got to be on that list. And then obviously for the Vikings, for me, it's Mike Lynn for making that Herschel Walker trade.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All great selections. I'll go is, I have a Twins owner on here, but it is not Calvin Griffith. I have Carl Pohlad.
I'll allow it.
Without Calvin Griffith, there is no baseball in Minnesota. Whether that's a good or bad thing, we can debate.
To be determined.
But the contracted refusal to pay. They get a new stadium and they don't re-sign their two marquee players, in Corey Johan Santana. Just continuous cheapness, and it's haunting them today.
100%.
And I joked for a while that I wouldn't cheer for the Twins until the Pohlads sold the team, but here I am, ready to be hurt again.
Hey, Michael Scott.
Yep.
It's like you're living here. It's like you're living here, Dylan.
It's pretty much.
It's like you're one of us.
Close enough. My next one is I have David Kahn, former Wolves GM. Mostly for the 2009 NBA draft, where he drafts 3-point guards, and
Johnny
not one
Flynn.
of them is Curry. And then he drafts the third one. He drafts is one that doesn't even play for the Wolves. Ricky Rubio. It took 2 years. We don't really know. He got hurt. I mean, he was a solid player, but
yeah, not
Steph Curry. But you could also make the argument similar to a number of players that similar to John Wooden, the snowstorm was the best thing to happen to his career.
David Kahn might have been the best thing to ever happen to Steph Curry.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have Chuck Fletcher, the Wild GM, who who signed the Parise and Suter contracts, which are still haunting the Wild. And I wish I would have known this before, and I might actually amend this, is with the Chuck Fletcher. I might switch it over to the Mike Lynn because it is the worst trade in sports, the Herschel Walker trade. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'll do. I'll cross off Chuck Fletcher and put Mike Lynn. So, Chuck, if you're listening, you're welcome. You're not on the Mount Flushmore of Minnesota sports. And my last one, we're going to go down to the college ranks, and I'm going to put Tim Brewster on there. Now,
good selection.
This is what Dan asked for when he was bringing Fire Glenn signs to the Metrodome.
Oh. Dylan, do not put this on.
Careful
Dan.
what you wish for. My mother would always say that to me. Be
Oh
careful
my
what you wish for.
God.
And he thought that they didn't need to recruit locally. He thought they were good enough to recruit nationally. I don't know where he came from, but by all accounts, anyone who has ever said anything about Tim Brewster, I've never heard anybody say a nice thing about him. Now he's the D coordinator with Dion.
Dion probably says nice things about him.
No, he's the tight ends coach.
Or the tight ends coach, like associate head coach or something.
Which is the
Dion,
title he's had every year since like 2013 at every school he's gone to. He's the tight ends coach, associate head coach, and recruiting coordinator.
Go get the bear.
And I heard just not a nice person, very arrogant. There's not many positive things to be said about him. And him trying to bring in national recruits set the Gophers program further back from what they were. At least with Glenn Mason, it felt like they were somewhat in that, that middle tier bowl range. With Tim Brewster, I think they made it to maybe one bowl. And after that, he was fired lost to multiple FCS teams. And
they ignored a bunch of recruits that the NDSU got.
Yep.
Thank you, Tim Brewster.
So maybe he's on the NDSU Mount Rushmore of which started a dynasty.
It's a good way to look at it.
So Minnesota is responsible for a dynasty in the 1990s in the NFL and the most dominant run in FCS football history.
Yeah.
Love it.
I like that spin zone I just did in my head there. So I guess thanks, Tim, but you're still on the Mount Flushmore of Minnesota sports. So that's mine. Now, Grant, it's over to you.
Dylan, I have a question. Did you look at my notes?
I did not.
We're 4 for 4. Dead ass.
Is it really?
Absolutely. When you said Fletcher, I was like, yes, we're going to be different. And then you go, no, Mike Lynn, worst trade in professional sports. And I was like, there's no way he's going to get this last one. And as soon as you said, we're going to go down to the college ranks, I was like, it's over. It's done. That was the one I thought I was going to have where people were like, oh, son of a bitch, that makes sense. But
that's one thing that college football, that's my niche. So that's one thing I know about.
To continue the Tim Brewster bashing, because we'll start there. He says, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to win the Rose Bowl. Not we're going to change the culture, not we're going to get better players.
Such a tool.
You're going to be proud of the young men that they become when they leave this program. We're going to win the Rose Bowl. Well, Tim, I looked up your records. You were 15-30 overall. You were 0-2 in bowl games. Against the top 25, he was 0-8. And catch this, Big Ten record of 6-21.
Hey, if you want to go hunt the bear, you got to be ready to get the bear.
No winning seasons in the Big Ten.
He was so bad, he gave Rich Rod a win.
One winning season overall. And the worst part for Minnesota fans, no wins over Iowa or Wisconsin.
And on our back will be an axe.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't the year they fired him, didn't Iowa or Minnesota go and beat Iowa?
Well, they beat him the next year.
Or it was the next year? Okay.
Jerry's first year. Yeah, Jerry's first year at TCF. And then, with, like I said, Mike Lynn orchestrated the Herschel Walker trade. And just to think what Dallas got, guys. In 1990, a first and a sixth round pick. 1991, a first and a second. And in 92, a first, a second, and a third.
And it could have been worse.
That is just, it's unforgivable. When they eventually have a class on how not to be a professional sports GM, Mike Lynn will be on the cover of that textbook, holding up the Herschel Walker purple 34 jersey at the press conference. And then Dylan, like you said, David Kahn, not once, not twice, but twice you skip on Steph Curry. And in one draft, you take 3 players from the same position.
Yep.
It's not like they got a combo guard or a slashing guard. 3 point guards. Three guys who need the ball and they need to facilitate. And Kevin Love, like what Dan said, Kevin Love tweeted later that night, "What are we doing after the 18th pick? What? And then during that time, they were just, like I said, they were the worst organization in professional sports. So thank you, David Kahn,
And
for
David
that.
Kahn still thinks he's smarter than you, just so you know.
He does. I love how much Dan Barrero just absolutely bashes on Kahn. It's fantastic.
You know how like him and Mason are now kind of like buddies, you know, even though they were contentious when Mason was here and they call it Mason your face.
Yes.
I keep kind of prodding Dan that maybe he should make friends with Kahn and then they could call it Mirror in your ear, you know, like the meerkat. The mirror in your ear, and they could bring Mir back.
Oh, that would be some bumper to bumper that I'd listen to for 3.5 hours.
100%.
It would go back. It would go past in like 30 minutes.
David Kahn, he's not. Is he a GM somewhere? He can't be.
No. Oh God. I think they kicked him out of the NBA. They exiled him. David Stern said, "No, you're done. You're done."
Not they should have.
Yeah.
And then Dylan, like you said, Carl Pohlad, that old cheap bastard. Just to watch Johan, Torrey, David Ortiz, Jack Morris all leave when you own the team. And then, like Dylan, like said, the worst part, we finally get an outdoor stadium in Minnesota. We did it. We're getting the farmer's tan. And then Torrey Hunter and Johan leave that offseason because we want to build to 2010. Really, Carl?
I'm actually glad you guys are you guys think that way, because sometimes when I say those things, because Twins fans are about as sensitive as Gopher fans, and when like I got into a Twitter battle, you know, just yesterday by talking about the Arise versus, you know, the pitching situation, and it's just like it's still prevalent today. The same philosophy is there. They're 17th in payroll. No, yes, you can still win a World Series, but it's not as likely unless you're in, you know, top 10 in payroll. And it's just, so I appreciate you guys having a similar perspective and not,
and even like when Carl,
the money to do it.
And Carl, he also agreed to sell the team. But then, you know, that got reversed. But at one point he said,
I don't want to get his stadium. It was all ploy.
Yeah. So it's just like, you know, and I think this is true. I could be wrong, but when it comes to total value for what they're worth, isn't Pohlad the richest owner in baseball? Like their family? Or, you know, maybe not anymore with Magic and the people that they got in Los Angeles.
Well, the Twins diehards will tell you that, you know, the Twins books show that they just can't afford, you know, their percentage of their payroll is higher than, you know, other teams' revenue, and just, it's a bunch of crap. Just stop it.
It's like, stop drinking the juice, you losers.
Oh my God. It's like a cult, and they need deprogramming.
He's just a cheap old man.
For the last 20 years of my life, I've been told that the Twins have the best farm system in all of the major leagues.
Don't even get me going on the prospects.
Yeah. And it's like, well, you got to build a farm system. I want to see it. I want to see a championship.
What are you going to do with it?
Spend money. If you have the money, what's, you know,
Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to go watch single A baseball in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
You can say your philosophy is that you're going to develop prospects, but then once they mature, you can't let them go sign with other teams. And when you do that, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
You're doing the dirty work for other organizations.
I interrupted you, Grant. I'm sorry.
But like to Dylan's point on the best farm system, I don't want to watch these young kids in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I want to see them in Minneapolis.
100%.
And, well, the other part, too, is, you know, like we said, Pohlads are one of the richest in baseball, but, you know, to go to enemy territory and quote Aaron Rodgers, what's the point of having fuck you money if you're not going to use it?
Exactly.
So, did you guys have any honorable mentions for your Mount Flushmore list? I had one. I had two, I should say.
Oh,
I do too. On there, and you could make the sense for Gary Anderson, but also didn't miss a kick except that one. They don't get there without him. You could make that argument.
100%.
I'm not going to bury a guy over one mistake.
Yeah.
No, me neither.
No, exactly. I mean, you could say a guy was a bust. It didn't work out, but you know, I would say the Metropolitan Sports Commission.
Did you take my notes?
Yes. I did. I teleported to Minneapolis, Grant.
This is unbelievable.
Fletcher ended up being on my honorable mention. Calvin Griffith did as well. That Steckel guy, the Vikings coach.
Oh, for sure.
It was only for a year, but it was bad.
It was Nathaniel Hackett bad.
Yes. Christian Ponder, because he blocked my buddy, or his wife blocked my buddy on Twitter because he told her to tell him to stop sucking.
Why Sam Ponder got to be so soft?
That's right. Because that was he was going to go to game day. He came to game day with us, and he was going to bring a sign that said, "Sam Ponder, please unblock me."
So, Dylan, you had said the Metropolitan Sports Commission, but when I originally made my Mount Flushmore on my graphic, I didn't have Norm Green on there. I had a guy named Bill Lester. Bill Lester was the head of the Metropolitan Sports Commission when the North Stars left.
Okay.
So that would be my honorable mention.
All right, Grant, did you said I took yours?
Yeah, well, we had the same thing. So maybe great minds think alike, or we're just two hooligans.
Yep.
I'll let the people decide. But this is America. We'll leave it up to democracy and a vote. But yeah, I had the Media Sports Commission also.
So, all righty. Well, then let's go to curveball of the week.
Dylan, I've been thinking this the whole episode. I'm sorry to interrupt. One heartbreak that I may add on there, just because you don't know, and you always feel bad talking about injuries, but Teddy and that knee.
Oh yeah.
Especially after he just diced the Chargers in that preseason game before, you felt like he was finally getting comfortable. You don't know what could have been. You feel bad for Teddy because he's just a good guy. And
so let me jump in on that, because one of the things I get a lot of suggestions about, like the Carl Kosulke Vikings motorcycle accident, or Corey Stringer's death, or certain things like Flip Saunders dying. When I don't know, I don't want to say it. The calendar is supposed to be funny, so I don't like to put that stuff on there because, clearly heartbreaking, but I feel like making fun of something like that is obviously not very cool. But yeah, I totally agree. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And that's why the Kirby's eye injury did make it into the book, because the publisher kind of talked me into it, because it was incredibly destructive for the team and his career. And but yeah, I tend to avoid putting those on the daily calendar because I just don't feel comfortable making fun of that stuff,
Oh yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
But yes, I totally agree with that being heartbreaking.